We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink.
Well, too late for that.
All right. Guess what, guys? It's another Wednesday night. It's time for SITREP. I'm Aaron Sampson. This is what, Ian? What is this? Episode
68.
68.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah, this is a special episode. We're excited to have this. We've got you want to intro him in, Ian?
No, not really. Yeah. Yeah, we've got some super cool people. Adam, I don't even remember what year it was and how. I don't even remember anything about how we met, bro. I know we talked on the phone a lot and we prayed a lot together, and we've never met in person.
Right.
But we have lots of mutual friends, and you're very inspirational, both of you. And this is the Wegman family. This is Adam and Joni Wegman.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys. Sorry,
Hey, guys.
Just realized I had a hamper behind me, and I'm like, okay, I need to get that out of my screen here.
It's totally cool.
Airing the dirty laundry.
Right. Actually, that's probably clean laundry. Yeah, so, guys, you guys have an amazing journey and a lot of stuff that's been going on, and there's things that have changed throughout, following you guys. It's pretty interesting and amazing stuff that God's been doing for you guys, and we kind of want to touch on that, and then talk about what you guys are getting into now, because you had some really cool things coming out with the website and the books and everything. So, if you guys want to fire it off and just kind of talk about and introduce yourself, and then we'll, if we have any questions or anything, we'll jump in and ask.
All right. Yeah, so I'm Adam. This is Joni, my wife. And in July, we'll be coming up on 20 years of marriage already. Ian, it was 2018 when we started talking. I just remember that because we were building the bus at the same time. And I was up late then, and now I'm not.
Yeah, I remember you building the bus, man. I remember that, and I can't believe I can't believe when you told me you're building the bus and you didn't know where you were going to go. You're just going to drive around. And I'm not sure if were Nathan and Chelsea before you, as far as the RV?
Yeah, like a month or two before us.
Yeah, there were several people all of a sudden, like all of my friends were like, oh, by the way, we're selling everything and we're moving to an RV. And I'm like, what? What the heck's going on? How come God didn't tell me to do that? Thank God he didn't tell me to do that. We'd have been dead for sure. I got way more kids. It'd have been horrible. We'd had to have two buses, like some kind of jerry rig thing going on, or maybe like a semi. We'd have probably been getting pulled over for trafficking all the time because my family's in the back of a semi truck or something. It'd have been horrible.
But then you would miss out going number 2 in a compost toilet.
I had a friend that let me, dude, I live in the country. I go to the bathroom wherever I want.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And I live in Ohio too. Yeah. So I don't have any liberals sneaking over my fence and reporting me.
Uh-huh. You just take the shotgun out.
That's right. Everybody has shotguns. Nobody's peeping anything over here. I think it's cool though, because you guys, I remember you guys are being like, we're just gonna have to trust God to figure out where we're gonna go and all that stuff. And then I cannot believe that you drove around for 2 years, more than 2 years.
Yeah, Adam counted it up. So it was 85 campsites. So 85 places technically that we lived over those 2 years. That's how much we moved.
Wow.
So you guys definitely have been camping more than me.
Yes.
Not roughing it though. We actually have had some power and water. But it was fun and it was a learning experience. I'll tell you what, like that changed how our outlook on life completely when we left.
Yeah, we're not the same people that left Minnesota. Really, there was 2 prayers that we prayed. One was that we would go where he wants us to go and do what he wants us to do. And previously, before that, we were both running businesses, business owners, homeschooling children. But there was this feeling in our hearts that we could not do away with. And it was just this prompting and this heaviness that the conversations went like this. There's got to be more. There's got to be more than this. This can't be how life is supposed to be. And that was just, we're doing the grind. I was working 3 days a week. Adam was working the other 3. And we just traded off schedules so that we could be home with the kids. And so that was the first prayer we prayed. And the other prayer was that the Father would just take everything out of our lives that were distracting us from him. And so there was an emptying process of our vessels while being on the road. And so it's really hard to describe what life is like on the road when you're doing it the way we were doing it, where we were just asking him for our daily bread, praying that he would literally tell us where to go, where Adam was going to drive the bus each day or each week. And he had divine appointments set up for us in all different states and people, and I really think, God moves in the simple things, because it might be something like we stopped at someone's house and she's like, I just canned some fresh raspberry jam, and that's our favorite, and she gave us some for our travels. Or it was just multiple things like that happen along the way. But when you take yourself out of all of the familiar situations, away from all the people that love you, know you as who you are, and put you in a situation where you live in a bus, no one, and that you have no reputation, good or bad, and you literally have to rely on him for your stability, it really changes your life.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I would like to say that the Father's been teaching me the same type of things, but luckily he hasn't taken me on the road to do that. It's been here, but the same whole trust me every day for your daily bread and divine appointments and all that stuff. But to add that extra bit of stress, like where the heck are we going to drive to? Or if my house breaks down,
right?
What are we going to do? Or, I know when Nathan was in Ohio, I think he was in Ohio when they were out, they just pulled into the wrong spot and got stuck in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the biggest pain in the butt just to get your wheels back on the ground.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a lot of stuff. I'm sure you guys have ridiculous stories.
Yeah.
We do.
He sounded so depressed. We do.
We do.
Oh, gosh.
One cool thing though is we prayed every day when we would travel. We pray that the place we were headed, that we would have favor with the people there, and they would have favor with us. And that prayer was answered every single time for 2 years straight. Mm-hmm. Like we never had a single bad experience in a parking spot. We always had people opening their doors to us. It was amazing.
Strangers.
Yeah. Mainly strangers, but also, so like everyone dogs on Facebook for being, they're spying on us and all that stuff, which is true. But I've met some of my best friends on Facebook, and I got to drive to their places and meet them in person. And it's been the most incredible experience. Nathan, Chelsea are some of them, that we met on the road in person, and we caravan with those guys for a while. So it's been, an incredible journey and ride. And we're thankful to be where we're at today, but our perspective has definitely changed from where it was.
So
if you could think back on, sorry, Aaron.
No, you're right.
If you could think back on like a story or like an event, like what was one of the first events that was like the most challenging thing that you didn't expect to encounter?
I know this event.
Say it.
Oh man.
I don't know which one you're thinking of.
In Texas.
Go for it.
I'm surprised you don't remember.
No.
He'll remember.
I will once you start saying.
Yeah, we got to Texas. That's actually where we met Nathan and Chelsea. We were at my aunt and uncle's house, and they're in Austin. And so I have a mobile salon in the bus. And this was when Adam just really wasn't familiar with how full the tanks could be before they needed to be emptied.
What she's trying to say is Adam was an idiot.
No,
But she won't say it.
no, he really
when you say tanks, you need to be more specific. What kind of tanks are you talking about?
Our holding tanks.
Well, so
What do you mean by
Gray
that?
water.
Gray water is like
Gray water. What's that mean?
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah.
Okay, so I had this client.
You mean yellow water or green
Yeah,
water?
Definitely gray, yellow,
Gray might mean you're unhealthy. I'm not like a super naturalist or anything like that, but like I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it's gray. Like that's, I don't know. You guys are in Oregon now. Maybe that's like a thing. You guys eat a lot of kale. You guys eat kale chips.
Just a lot of dirt. Dirt and charcoal.
And granola. Yeah.
Well, so I had this client that was going to come to the mobile bus salon to get her hair done. And
oh, yeah, there's a salon in the bus if you didn't know that. Yeah.
She just was this amazing person that we had met through a former business that we were in. And she happened to be pretty high up there in the business. And so it just made it all the more hilarious. And so anyway, she was supposed to be coming there for the appointment in 15 minutes. And okay, so mind you, I'm a pretty even keel person emotionally. It takes a lot to get me upset, but you take yourself out of all things familiar. You're driving on a road or on the road full time, and you're just emotionally just not as level as normal. Let's just say that. And so Adam just didn't empty the tanks. And so I'm in there getting it ready and lighting a candle, whatever I was doing. And out of our toilet, all of the gray water starts coming and gushing out of the toilet. It's on the floor. It's flooding the bus. It stinks. It's disgusting. And I'm like, the bus is flooding with pea water. And I'm like, kind of like semi upset, semi like panic mode.
She freaked out.
He's like, we have no towels because we're living minimally. So we don't have like these big beach towels or anything there. We have, 3 little thin towels that will fit in the tiny cabinet. And so we have no towels, and this pea stinky water is just flooding into the bus. And I'm like, there's pea water everywhere. And so Adam's like, where are the towels? I'm like, we don't have any. And then my uncle comes out, and my uncle's like kind of just a little bit concerned about the pea water going all over his lawn. And so then he's like kind of concerned, and he's like, well, we got to get some old towels. And anyway, so I had to tell the client that we just had a mild emergency, and she was cool. She rescheduled for like an hour out or something. We got most of the pea water mopped up. And
well, you need to retell this story. Next time you tell this story, let me help you here. You need to somehow bring her into this story, like at the same time as the pea water is geysering out of it. And something about like, then she had compliments on her hair because it was like, there were these natural gray highlights or something.
Yeah.
Like, make this story cool, guys.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Well, it happened again when she was getting her hair done. Actually, it had like a purple undertone to the dark hair. And so then the tanks backed up again. And so that was coming out of the sink, and she was barefoot because it was Texas and it was hot.
Oh.
And she was barefoot, and I was just paying attention to shampooing her hair, and all of a sudden she's like, Joni, my feet are wet.
Oh, heck no.
Whatever she said. And I looked down, and this purple stream of water is coming, it's dripping out of the side of the bus. And actually it took us like 2 weeks to get that stain out of the floor. So it was an interesting day.
That's what happens when you build everything yourself. It's all trial and error.
It never happened again though. So in his defense, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's I guess maybe that was I don't know. You God does weird stuff, but that's humbling.
Actually.
Oh, for sure.
You're totally right. But okay, that sounds like a pretty wacky, wild thing. But because of that, Joni had an experience with her uncle that changed her perspective on what love looks like. Like true agape love came out of that horrible situation.
So I was yelling. I mean, that's like the easiest way to put it. I'm like yelling, there's pea water. And anyway, my uncle was like, calm down. You're not making the situation any better. Like, that's not going to fix the situation. I'm like, I know. And he just saw that he saw through this is not about the pea water. You obviously, like, you're living on the road. You're missing your family. Like, there's just a lot going on. You guys, like, are living in a bus now. You just left everything. And so after my client left, he just came out there and he just started hugging me and like praying for us and like encouraging us. He's like, you know what? I don't care what you did or if you yelled or how you feel, like, we love you guys. And it's funny to say that because you would expect that you would have more experiences like that in your life when you clearly are not calm and someone is comforting you. You know, I just have experienced a lot of people in my life betraying me, or if you don't perform a certain way or you don't look a certain way, or when you're in the trenches, it's like people disappear. And so to see someone, and that was just one experience, but it really was an agape love experience for me to realize that there are people who truly love you regardless of your tough days, your great days. And I needed that experience there too. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure this is one of the things I love what you guys have done, and I wish that, you know, I was in that position, but, you know, God has called me to be where I'm at right now. But I love that whole idea of just kind of getting away from all the distractions and all of the, you know, I have to do this because of this, and this, you know, like, and it takes away from that trust and that, you know, that faith and those learning experiences that you have that you wouldn't have if you were working a 9-to-5, you know, just carrying on doing, you know, going through the motions, you know, of life, so to speak. Now you've taken yourself out of a comfort zone and put yourself fully into the hands of God. And I just think it's an amazing experience. And, you know, I think everybody should be in that, especially in this Christian walk. We should at least in some point of our life be in that position where you can't do anything without God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you need him to carry you along. But we talk a lot about God showing up at 11:59. Did you guys have any of those moments or like one that sticks out? Okay.
Yeah, I've got one.
our whole life.
Yeah, pretty much everything we do. 11:59.
Wait, is there another hour?
Yeah, right.
You ain't
So,
kidding.
Everything just doesn't fall in our lap. We're not those people. So let's
Not
just get
not
that,
at all.
let's get that right out in the open.
No, but we do jump in the deep end head first usually. So
You're welcome.
yeah, thanks to Joni.
Go ahead.
But I love it. Anyway, so this one actually 11:59. So we were in Arizona, and we were trying to make our way to Oregon at the time, but we decided to make a detour and go to Southern California to meet up with some friends. And on our drive there, that whole thing fell apart, and we were in California already. And so we found this place. It was like a hospitality house. It was this place that was an Airbnb, but the people that owned it were believers. And so we ended up connecting with them, and they said, well, why don't you come up to our place? They're up in the mountains by San Diego. And we said, okay, sounds good. So it had been raining for days. It was like a really rainy season. It was the spring of 2020. No, last year. Yeah, 2020. Man, my years are all messed up.
2020 didn't exist. I mean, it didn't exist.
It did, for real. Well,
That's the year everyone was eating toilet paper.
yes.
Yeah, it's true.
The history books are.
Since
They're
that's what
probably
you
just going to skip
stockpile.
2020.
They will too. It wasn't there.
I'm just not sure why people thought toilet paper was edible. But
I don't know.
just in case you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is
Hot sauce makes everything edible. You know.
Dude,
You got any hot sauce stories after this one?
let's hear some. But so these people were supposed to go up to their place, and they said, well, wait till this certain day and time. And it just happened that we rolled into town at the exact moment that she got off work early and he was home, which was rare. So, you know, chalk that up as a moment that God, like, that's one thing we realized. There's no coincidences whatsoever. There's no happenstance. It's all orchestrated by him. And if you can see that, it's like he's got everything working perfectly in sync together. So we drive up to their place, up these really windy mountain roads, and we go up on the backside of the property. They had this RV spot, and we pull in on the driveway, and it wasn't raining at the time. This was like the only day it didn't rain for a week. And I get out and the owners say, "Hey, what's up?" And then he goes, "Hey, you should pull over into this spot by the water spigot. You guys can hook up to water and stuff over there." And I walked over there and the ground was just a little squishy. And I go, we're pretty heavy. I think I'd sink, because I got stuck in Minnesota doing the same thing. And he's like, no, yeah, you should probably park over here. I'm like, I think I'm going to get stuck, but all right, man. So I backed the bus up and I knew I was going to get stuck. I just knew, but I just gunned it. And I start driving and the bus goes, and it just buries itself to the axle in the front. Bad. And the bus is leaning like this.
Yeah, it was bad.
And he's like, oh. Yeah, I guess that's pretty heavy, huh? I'm like,
we're like, yep, 30,000 pounds. That's what we
sure is. Anyway, it was funny. We're good friends, but it was hilarious. So, like, our first interaction was this whole thing. Okay, so that night we slept in the bus as it's tipped, and they felt horrible because we ended up having to get a tow truck to pull us out. It was just really, really sucked. So we go to sleep that night, wake up in the morning, and it's a thunderstorm, and it's just torrential downpour, and it was freezing cold too. And so they called us from the house, and they're like, "Hey, do you guys want to come in and just stay in the house for a night or two?" And we're like, "Yeah, that'd be great, actually, because we're pretty much leaning sideways here, and it's just not a good situation." So they invite us in, and we get set up in the bedrooms. The next day, they locked the whole country down with COVID, and they shut down all the state parks, all the BLM land, everything was shut down. So we pulled in, got stuck, and it was all orchestrated that we would get stuck, in my opinion, because it forced us into their home. Yeah. So we had a safe place to be while the whole quarantine thing was going on, and we were able to fellowship with them and work on their house and do all this stuff. And it was like, but there you go. There was 11:59. If we hadn't got stuck, we maybe would have pulled out of there, and then we would have been, who knows where we would have ended up with, everything getting shut down. So
you don't want to be stuck in California.
No, and California is not the place to get stuck. No,
Right.
That's awesome. What makes me think of, Aaron, remind me, I don't know if I actually said this on our show last week or if I just been talking about it a lot, but I was reading this new book by Dr. Francis Miles, the guy that wrote the co-author of the Courts of Heaven studies. And it's called the spiritual, what is it called? The Spiritual Technology of Divine Interception. And it sounds crazy because it sounds like, some kind of technology or whatever, but it's literally, he's describing like how, a lot of people understand God and they've experienced his intervention, his divine intervention, where he has to come in and rescue you out of something that you've done that's put you in a bad spot. And then there's this whole other side, though, that if we can learn to use this other technology that we get through relationship of divine interception, where he's intercepting us before we get to these bad places. And because we're able to hear and listen, we're actually listening for him, right? He can stop us before we get to the point where he has to intervene. He's intercepting our paths all the time. You know what I mean? By just kind of guiding us to where he wants us to go with minimal, I guess, damages, right? Because he said one thing is whenever there's an intervention, there's usually a scar because somebody gets hurt in some way, right? You're not dead, but there's a scar from it. And the intervention, there's just a small amount of bruising possibly, right? From the bump. And I was like, oh, this is like I've really been like just absorbing that for like the last month because it's not that profound, but in the way that it's written and that I'm hearing it, I'm just kind of understanding it more. We've all known about those two things, right? Interception and intervention. But I think that when you guys are describing just being on the road and having to start your day asking God where you're going and when listening, because you could easily get on the wrong road or do something that could cause an accident, or you could be stranded somewhere. And because you have your entire home and family with you, it wouldn't be like you're in an accident. It would be like you lost everything. You know what I mean? It's like a lot more riding on it.
Yeah.
So when you have that perspective, you're like, I guess it helps. Maybe how does it help? Listen, do you feel like you learn to hear the Father more clearly? Or can you shed any light on that?
Well, I have two things to say bouncing off of that I was just gonna comment in why it is profound. I think what you're saying is because the interception part of it shows his love for us. I feel like that is just an indication of his love, and it also shows the love of others, because I truly believe that in some of those intercessions, it's also people in prayer for those of us that, you know, prayer warriors going to prayer and preventing some, you know, sometimes like pleading with God and preventing us from certain things. But yeah, what I thought of it.
Oh yeah, like as you're talking, I was just thinking of a story again, an instance of where he prevented us from something, and we had something bad happen on the road. We blew a tire, but we were in an area where if we would have went straight, we would have went towards the Grand Canyon and into no man's land. But instead, we took a right and went towards the Four Corners in northeastern Arizona. And we ended up blowing a tire, and we thought we were in the middle of nowhere. And through a bunch of different circumstances, it was a Sunday. It was like everything was against us.
No cell coverage.
No cell coverage. Where we blew the tire, there was a driveway.
50-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, the wind was whipping. It was cold. It was actually raining. And there was no driveways for like 50 miles. And we blew a tire, and there's a driveway in front of us. And there's a car at the end of the driveway, and there was no one around, you know, other than that. So I quick jumped out and ran up to this person and said, "Hey, we just blew a tire. Is there any, you know, I don't even know how far the nearest town is."
There was like nothing for like 80 miles at that point.
Yeah, it was in the middle of the Navajo reservation up there. And it was, she goes, "Yeah, actually, Yazi's tire repair is like 4 miles up the road." And I'm like, "You're kidding me. We're in the middle of nowhere." She goes, "Oh yeah, it's right up the road." So we were towing a car. So I hopped in the car and go up there, and it was Sunday, and they were open on Sunday of all days as well. And the guy, I'm like, "Hey, here's my tire size. We blew a tire, but we have duals, so we can still make it to your place, you know, on 3 tires or whatever." And I said, "Here's the size." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, you see that water truck over there?" He had like, it was like a scary movie scene where it was out in the middle of nowhere, a trailer house with boarded up windows, dogs running everywhere.
And they're in black capes because it's pouring rain, and they're like in these like long black capes.
Dudes in black capes, and there's no garage. They're doing this outside in the dirt, you know?
Wind. I mean, the whole bus was shaking this whole time.
But he goes, "You see that water truck? Yeah, that came out of a mine, like up the road, and some deal, like if they don't come and get their trucks after X amount of time, you can take them." I don't know the story. It was crazy. And he goes, "That thing has the same exact tire size as your bus. We're going to take the tires off that, put them on your bus." And I'm like, "No way.
So awesome.
That's crazy." So we pull up.
Came out of a mine. What?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what he said.
That's hilarious.
It was just crazy. But the fact that he had us take a right and go towards the Four Corners instead of heading north towards
That's
the Grand
exactly
Canyon.
it, man.
But
The
then
divine
we missed the
interception.
Grand Canyon, but it's okay.
Yeah, well, hey.
No, I was gonna say on that to answer your question that yes, I think that there are a lot of ways that people hear the Father or feel the Holy Spirit, but I think what has happened to us because of the no distractions thing on the road is that, and I guess speak for me, and Adam can answer for himself, but I feel as though all of our senses are engaged now to tune into what he is saying, smells, sounds, creation, what people are saying. Like, I'll give you for instance that many times people aren't even engaged with one another. They may ask a question, and the person, you know, that is supposed to be waiting for the answer is like, you know, and we're so disengaged that I think it engaged us in our relationship with the Father. It engaged us with our relationship with our children, with each other, to a really, really deep level. And I mean, that'll kind of lead us later in the conversation to how these studies were written, how they came about. But I really believe that he had to get us so far away from all of our distractions that you can't help but see him. You can't help but hear him and feel him and sense him in daily life and daily situations, because there isn't anything else. There's no one else that's going to rescue you. Your money's not going to get you out of this or that. And you have to face all of your giants too at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I feel like we definitely, like Adam said, we're not the same people that left our home state.
Have you guys read the book The Dream Giver? Okay. Well, it's this book by Wilkerson, I think, is the author. And it's about this named, I forgot his name. Is it anybody? Or no, his name is like Anybody or Nobody or something. And he leaves the land of familiar and he goes on this quest. And it kind of parallels the whole Exodus account, but with different terms and facing giants and different things. And that's what it was like for us. We left our land, the land of familiar, our home state, all the people we knew, and we walked out into the unknown, into the land of unfamiliar, and we're nobodies in that land. No one knows who we are, and we do have to face giants constantly, daily. Mm-hmm. And he physically took us to the desert 2 separate times, and we spent months there, and he sorted us and sifted us, and we were refined by the fire in the desert. And that's not a joke. I think we physically had to experience it. Yeah. To let some things go that we were holding on to break down some things some sin in our life that we didn't see, to have a different perspective on life and what we're supposed to do here. So it's been quite a journey, and our perspective is, I don't know how to explain that. I keep saying the same thing over and over. Our perspective has changed, but I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, it's not describable unless you walk through a situation like that. And I believe that we had to walk through the different things that we went through on the road and previously before that, because if we are going to continue in the ministry that we want to do, and we're going to continue in assisting with couples and their marriages and healing, and mm-hmm. again, getting in the trenches with other people, you can't possibly understand what they're going through if you've had this life given to you that has been easy and convenient and is the same every day. Like it's not relatable. You can't get there. And so we have definitely been there. We've been to all the areas in our hearts and in our lives. And yeah, it's changed us in good ways.
Yeah. I love what you guys were talking about with like the kind of like you hanging a right and going down this pathway because you felt led by the Holy Spirit. And yeah, it was inconvenient, right? That moment of blowing out a tire and whatever. But can you imagine like the orchestration that God had to enable and put in that path, right? And the other way could have been like seriously either, dangerous or deadly if you would have blown, a tire out in the middle of nowhere and it's raining and you guys could have been stuck out there for days, if not, whatever, with the heat and there. I mean, you could really kind of fork that off into a million different probabilities. But the thing is though, that out of those probabilities, those chances of crazy things happening, God orchestrated a particular path and guided it to where they had a truck that had the same tire that you guys, to think about that kind of stuff is crazy. Oh, did we lose him? Oh, there we go. I thought we lost him.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm going to plug my phone and we're getting low battery thing.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I think it's amazing to just think about and it reminds me a lot about the stories like of Job and stuff where things were happening to him and he was praising God because what was the other fork of that path supposed to look like? Mm-hmm. When we sit in a situation that's uncomfortable or whatever that God has us in, what was the alternative that would have been way worse, and just to think about that it's an uncomfortable situation, but like Ian said, you get a couple of bruises, but what would it have looked like down the other path? And I love that the closer we are to God, he knows what kind of things are going to come in our way, and he's going to try to navigate us. It's just like you would with your children. You don't, your kids are going to fall down and hurt themselves, but do you throw down glass all over the place for them? Or are you going to try to avoid that kind of area? Hey, don't stay over there. Don't play over there. You're going to get hurt. So I just love that. It just shows the character of God that he can orchestrate those things so into the minute details that it just happens and flows the way that it does, that that there's nothing you could have possibly done that would have changed that.
No.
Yeah, since I just got back tonight, I went to a training tonight for a community center that I'm going to be working at, and we did some training for people with addictions. And it's interesting that this all happened tonight, just because it put in my mind, these people are talking about it was a doctor that was talking to us about what happens to the brain when someone's addicted to something. And it's easy to just write this off because you're like, oh, I don't have any friends that are addicts or anything like that. But we're all addicted to things, and we can be addicted to like just the normality of the things or the routine that we live. Right. And I think it's awesome when God is doing things and you're obedient and he pulls you out of an addiction because you give it to him, right? Like he's asking you for it and you give it to him. And then you might not even realize how big a deal it is until a year later or whenever. But I think it's cool because when you're in an addiction, your brain doesn't compute it. It just refuses to acknowledge it, right? It gives every other reason for, to justify it, but it won't acknowledge that it's a problem, right? Until you get a little bit clean. Then you start to have these thoughts, right, that come in that tell you that, and what the heck's going on? Like, you start to realize that you were fogged up or something was going on, right? And I think about this, like, I just think about the things that I've been eliminating from my life systematically over the last 2 years, just a little bit here and there. It's like I felt like God said, give me fantasy football is what started it for me. And I thought, why do you want fantasy football? That's like the only thing I like, And then it was because I gave it up, but I was so depressed about it because I'm like, I don't even make, like, I'm not gambling. I'm not like it's not like a career, you know what I mean? But it was just, and it was like, I had a lot of fun doing it, but it consumed me during football season, and then I just got rid of it. And then the next football season rolls around and I don't even remember it was football season, which is so strange, right? For a guy that likes football. So you're like, wait, how many weeks are we in? They're like, preseason's done, everything. You're like, what day is it? It's like, holy cow. You fill it with something else, right? And then it was one thing after another. Then it was music, then it was this, and then you just keep saying yes. And then you look back and you're like, how did I function? Because I still feel like I feel like God's telling me even right now to quiet down. Like I need to be in a still spot where I can hear him more clearly. And I'm like, okay, God, well, I hear you. But he's like, you're not hearing me fast enough, or you know what I mean? Or clear enough. You're kind of in the ballpark of what I'm saying, but you're not hearing it exactly right. It's almost like you're getting really good at lip reading, but you're not awesome at it. So you miss some things sometimes, but I really feel like you guys maybe have a really good perspective on that because you legit are taken away from things. I mean, just the fact that you don't have service everywhere you go. And, did you have to go back to old school maps, and where in the world did you even buy them? Because they don't even sell them at gas stations anymore. So it's like, you got to plan ahead or you're screwed. There's a lot of things that we just don't think about. And so I'm just, I think it's awesome that everybody has, like, God, because obviously God didn't tell me to do that. He's taken me somewhere else. But I think it's really cool when people share their stories and you're like, man, God must have some really cool things in store for you guys, because he really did some weird stuff to you to get you there, So like, obviously, how you run into somebody random and you're talking and then like you have all these things in common, or because of an experience you have, you're able to speak into their life on something that they're going through.
Yeah.
Like having gone your route, it's like, have you been able to do any of that yet? Like, have you been able to like run into some random person that's kind of like, I know when you're out in Cali, there's probably a lot of people living in cars or buses or RVs or anything like that. Have you ever had been able to share, your story or share Christ through that?
Constantly. I don't think there's a time we haven't.
One thing that surprised me was how many people are living full-time nomadically. There are a lot. If people don't realize that, especially, well, we're from Minnesota, where you just don't do that there because it's too cold and it's just not the nature of people there. But one thing we realized is we met a lot of people living in vans, living in their car, living in buses. And the common thread with most of them, some were believers, most of them not. But the common thread was the American dream is a lie. And I want to live my life now. I don't want to do it when I retire or all these other things. I want to live now and not wait. And it was like almost a sense of urgency for everyone. Like, I don't want to have the debt and the house and all these things because they saw that it tied them down. And so they rejected the idea of the white picket fence and the college degree and the corporate America job, and they decided to do something for themselves and or work on the road or work remotely. And not everybody can do that, but that was one of the common threads we've seen. And then when we get to share our stories of faith and what God's done in our life through being on the road or why we're on the road, that's usually like one of the questions you get. Why are you guys on the road? Like we get out of our bus and some people are surprised. They're like, oh, you guys don't have dreads and you're not, it's there's a stereotype that goes with it. And we're like, no, we're pretty normal actually.
Hey, what's wrong with
kind
dreads?
of, I guess.
Is there...
Yeah, hey, Aaron, I didn't know you had dreads.
Yeah.
Hey,
You're hiding them back
dreads.
there.
He's eating kale chips too.
That's my Nazarene vow going on here.
Oh, cool. Right on.
Love it.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say though is
ahead.
the stereotypes that go with it.
You're trying to make fun of the people in
And I'm trying to
this?
make fun of the host of the show.
Yeah.
That doesn't work very well.
We'll never be invited again. That just ruined it.
Disappointing.
It's fine.
Do people think that you're when they often see you roll up, do they think that you're like vacationing? Are they surprised when you tell them you actually live in there? Or do they pretty much know that you live in there by like the front door that you have on your bus?
Every single person comments about our door. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Every single person.
I love that. I thought it was awesome.
Thing's a $10 wood door I found on Marketplace, and it's seen better days now. And we're like, what are we gonna do if we can't have this door? Adam's like putting screws in it. He's cut it down like 4 times because when you go from humid states to dry states, then it shrinks and it grows, and so he just keeps cutting it. And it's like, I don't even know how that door is still on, but it's a cool door.
See, I've never even thought of that. I would have never thought of that.
Know,
that you're like your wooden door is weathering while you're taking it all around the country.
Yes.
Yep.
That door will tell you our story. You just look at that door.
Hey, are you going to be getting rid of your bus at all ever? Is that like in the plan or
no?
I was going to say you better take that door if it tells your story. I mean,
no, Adam almost died building that bus. We're not selling that thing.
That's a little extreme, but
he was up till, we just, like you said, all in. So we were selling our homestead. We had a homestead on 6 acres on this little lake. We were doing the normal life and gardening with chickens and goats. And then I would go to the salon and he would design his jewelry and we'd come home and we'd do the thing.
We were all prepped out. Seriously.
Totally prepped, totally ready to go.
Yeah.
Back then, people didn't have that mindset. So we were pre-prepped, so to speak. And, we just sold or gave away all of that. Then at the same time we were doing that, we were also doing that because I had bought our commercial building 15 years ago when I was 25. And so we owned the buildings, but we had all the stuff in there for running a wellness salon and spa and employees and all that. So then we had to get rid of and sell all of that stuff. At the same time we were doing that, he was renovating and I was helping with like the background work of renovating and design and ordering all the parts and research and all that. So it was an insane time in our life. And he was staying up till like 2 a.m. and literally our neighbor said to him when we came back the following year to Minnesota after being on the road for a year. He's like, Adam, it is so good to see you. I literally thought you looked like you were going to die. He's like, I was scared because you did not look good when you were renovating that bus. Yeah. It was nuts.
Does that kind of like remind you of like this, the story of the man who had the storehouse, who kind of like stored up all this stuff, and then he's like, you know, like, if you die tomorrow, like, what is any of this going to be good for? But that's what kind of reminds me of. Like, I think that's kind of the prepper mentality, is we have to prepare for this certain thing, but then that takes away again from trusting in the Father.
Yeah,
you know?
It does.
And I believe there are some people, don't get me wrong, there are some people who are called to store up that kind of stuff, because they may be a kind of Goshen for people where these people are called to go there. But for the general consensus, you know, of the general people, like, if you're putting all of your trust in the goods that you've stored up, then you're not walking in the way of the Father. So, you know, I think that's awesome, though, that was where your mentality was, and God was like, okay, that's cool, but I have a different plan for you guys, you know? So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think skills are more valuable than stuff. Also.
Amen.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever, so what do you guys do on the road, like, for money? I mean, I know you have a mobile salon, but Adam, you were like a jeweler or something. I mean, it's like you guys have like the craziest background. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, you know, I know it's probably shocking for people in, you know, West Coast to see you guys step out of the bus and be like, what the, but like to be like, what do you do for a living? And you're like, well, I'm actually a jeweler, or I was, or whatever you're, you know, whatever you know, it's just like, what? Like, you just don't think these things. It's like too much almost, you know. Like, God really does laugh a lot at us when he sets us up, you know what I mean? Because that's a big, I mean, I know that as men, we like to think we're good at everything, right? The only reason I'm not good at that is because I haven't tried it yet, or, you know, whatever. But I don't know that you can do a jeweling job like from the road. So what did you have to do? Like, were you just pulling over and like just doing random things for money?
Well, you know how we talked about earlier, like, the Father prepares you ahead of time for things you don't know are going to come. And I think my whole life has kind of been that way. I've done a lot of different things. I'm not going to say I'm great at all of them, like you're saying, but for metalworking has been one of the things he's had me do. So I went to school to be a machinist, and then, you know, did some welding in high school, and went to college for machining and stuff. And then afterwards, I framed houses after high school for a little while. So I've got a background in a lot of different things. But then I did an online career test, and on there it had jeweler as one of the options, or goldsmith. And I ended up getting a job at this jewelry store, on the job training, and I just had a gifting for it. And so, yeah, I did that for how many years? 12?
Like 16 years.
16 years? Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, 16 years as a goldsmith. So designing, repairing, setting diamonds, all that stuff. And then, yeah, when we ended up leaving Minnesota on the road, I just packed all my equipment and we went. And I didn't take anything with me. So we were, honestly, when we say we lived on faith, we truly did, because I didn't know what I was going to do. We had a little bit of money. We knew it would get us a little ways, but we knew it would run out too. And so, yeah, on the road, I've done a lot of random things: pulling weeds, cutting wood, working at like an amusement park, at a bakery, doing siding, renovating this little cottage we're in right now. All kinds of different things.
Yeah, I started my own makeup and skincare business about 5 years ago. So we were shipping that on the road.
Yeah.
It was super hilarious to like bring the 40-foot bus and try and park on the side of the road and drop stuff off at the post office. But,
so wait, do you make do you actually make the makeup that you sell, or the skincare stuff, or?
I have a manufacturer that does that. So they do that, and I look through all the specifications and ingredients one by one, and then design, you know, labels, website, packaging, all of that. So yeah. So we were doing that. That was just like, you know, our income to help with other stuff. And then we were actually in an online company that was sustaining our income for back home, because our commercial building that we both ran our businesses in for all of those years didn't sell. And it's a long story. We've had just kind of trauma after trauma for the last 7 years of just financial trauma. That's the easiest way to put it. Two hardworking people. It's unexplainable, the types of things that have happened to us and with our building, and just stuff that is not at fault to us, but just life's circumstances. And we always tell people that because people, they see what they want to see on social media, and we're an open book, and we try to be pretty open about, don't compare yourself to us, don't look at us. It's like, you guys have the perfect marriage and the cutest little family and everything's good. And we're like, no. Like, let's just, like, if you want to know our true story, we'll tell you all the things.
I bet money that one of you guys has a gray foot right now.
Oh my goodness. Exactly.
More like gray hair right here.
Oh, that's even nastier. I don't even want to think about that.
Right?
But when it was like, I think a year or so into the road. So this online business was providing for us to pay our taxes, our mortgage, our insurance on this empty vacant commercial building because it had flooded with our neighbor's sewer water. Insurance didn't cover it. It was just this fiasco. We fixed all that up. We had to go back to Minnesota, fix all of that up. Couldn't get it rented, obviously, because of that. Then last year when we were there, Adam took all this time to turn it into a residential property because it was commercial. It wasn't selling. The neighbor's septic flooded again, broke our well pump. It was just a disaster. Insurance didn't cover it again. They should have. And so we ended up, our banker, because we've paid this mortgage for 15 years, let us take out an equity line to fix this whole building. And Adam drove up there and turned it into a residential, so it's finally rented. But this business that we had was paying for all that, and they
Is that, which kid is that?
This is
this
Solomon.
is Buttercup.
Oh, okay.
I
Buttercup.
thought birds weren't real.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
not.
Oh,
It's a drone.
Sorry, I've got 6 of them in the backyard myself. So
that is when our life got really real. It was year 2 on the road. We got let go from this online business through literally a series of random things again. And so we found ourselves on the road, away from home, drove to what was supposed to be this job in Arizona, and what they had said it was going to be just they weren't forthright about it. And so there we are, we have nowhere else to go because it's winter and we have this mortgage to pay and bills to pay, and they're going to, pay Adam $9 an hour or whatever. And I'm doing some hair on the road. We have just the side income of my makeup and skincare line, but that's supposed to be, gas money, food, some things like that. That is when life got really real. And that is when we saw people come out of the woodwork, kingdom people who, again, were pretty much strangers that didn't know us and would message us things like, hey, God put you strongly on my heart. Is there a way we can donate to your ministry? Is there a way we can help you guys? And at that point, that is when you really become humble. Okay, so for people that were successful business owners, we just described the life we had, to, you have to accept it. Like, that you have to, humbly accept it and not remove the blessing that they're going to get from being obedient and helping you. But I don't know where this pride comes in with us, who are all believers in the kingdom, that we can't accept financial help from one another. And in the years when we had plenty, I never felt, that way when we were able to give. But when you're in the other situation,
receiving's harder.
Receiving is harder. And but that is where, man, person after person showed up. It might have been that the kids are like, why don't we even buy cheese anymore? And we're like, well, that's not a priority right now. and maybe in the future it will be. And the next place we park, someone's like, I got this extra block of cheese. I don't know why. Do you guys want it? Like those kind of stories, we could say 100 of those stories. Adam's grabbing the dog because he runs away. Sorry. Oh, he might have ran away already. But we have so many stories like that where people just came through for us. And so while we had a online business set up to be on the road, and then my other business, and then Adam picking up jobs, even with that, like tragedy will hit, sewer water will flood your building. So exactly what you were saying, you can't be prepared for all things that may happen in your life. And again, it's just, he's like, I'm just going to squeeze you a little bit more to see if you trust me. I'm just going to take a little more. Okay, that's your building. You love that place. I'm just going to flood it with sewer water. We'll just see where you're at, and so that was our kid's crib, from all the kids and all the stuff we saved, like that all went to the dump. And he's just like, he just kept telling us, do not store up for yourself treasures here that moth and rust will destroy. And so again, like you were saying, that's not for everyone. Some people he asked to prep, but for us, he just asked us to continually put our trust in him for every single day. So
and that may shift too. I've noticed that the way kind of God does things is he teaches us, we get in a season, and he teaches us this lesson for this season. And then that whole, he gets to the point where like, you've learned the lesson, now it's time to shift. And then your whole kind of, it's like, but I was getting comfortable where I was at here. And I think that's where God is like, this is time for now you to move to this next section, is when we start getting comfortable again, because we start getting complacent in that comfort. And then we get into the routines and stuff. And, I think God kind of laughs at our manly routines, our human instinctual thing to just make it comfortable and stay where we're at. But yeah, it's crazy though, to hear the stories that we've just talked about here. It seems like, when the gray water hits the fan, you guys have run across that a lot, it's, all the septic issues, man. That's almost like a sign. Like, it's like, this is something's happening here. It's time, it's like you literally have the crap.
Do you guys ever think about changing your diet so that you don't like go to the bathroom at all or anything like that? There's got to be like a diet for that, right?
We just got to eat more kale.
Just full fast.
Yeah, it's got to be like, or there's got to be like some kind of a filter you can buy in Portland. They probably sell them, like where it can make your excrement can be a meal for tomorrow or something. Like turn this into a slushy and urine therapy and all that stuff. They don't have any of that going out there.
Oh my word! Probably. I don't know.
Probably
we don't hang out in those areas, man.
You just drive through them.
We just wave when we drive by.
Well, I tell you what, man. Thank God you guys went west to drive around, because if you would have went east, there's nothing to look at. Like, you'd have been depressed and gave up for sure. I see your pictures on Instagram and I'm like, I could be broke down right there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's so pretty there,
Adam,
or you would just say, I'm just going to stop here and we're just going to stay on the side of the road for as long as we want, because it's so beautiful right now. And I'm looking out my window and it's freaking raining and there's no sky. Like, it's
no
weird.
Sky.
There is no sky. We haven't seen the sky in years. It seems like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, it is blue. It's still blue. Or like, I forgot what blue looked like, it's really insane. So I admire you guys. And is it weird to vlog your life?
If it wasn't for Joni, I probably wouldn't as much, just to be honest. She's the open book, but she inspires me to share too, because we keep getting messages from people like, for a while, like when we came here for like 6 months, we didn't do a whole lot on social media. We're like,
we need a break.
We're just burnt out on the whole thing. And then, people start asking how you're doing, and they're like, hey, you really helped me that day you posted whatever it was. Yeah. And we're like, oh, I guess people do pay attention and look at the stuff, and maybe the Lord's using it for that purpose, and we should probably take note of that and not just write everything off. It's easy to do that sometimes, especially for me. I'll just throw in the towel and be like, okay, I'm good. And but Joni's definitely more steadfast on that stuff than I am.
Well, you can remain steadfast when it's 5 or 10 people reaching out, every week that they're in need. They need prayer, they need advice, they need encouragement. And I just, I can't say no when there are people who they don't have people in their corner. And so, yeah.
But one cool thing is when we were traveling is that every single person you meet has a story to tell. Like, there's no boring lives out there. Everyone's got a very, very interesting story. And just coming up through California into Oregon, we were somewhere in California. We pull over and I just have to tell this one more story because this is like one of those divine appointments again.
Shoot.
There you go.
Are we still on?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
Someone
good.
is calling me. So sorry.
So we pull over to eat lunch, and this guy, we passed him like a mile back, and he was just walking with a backpack, on his back and stuff. And then we see him walk by our window, and and we were eating. She goes, "Why don't you ask him if you want some food?"
No, we pulled over for him. I said, "We got to pull over. This guy needs."
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
This guy needs us to pull over. I don't know why. I'll just tell Adam to pull over. Oh, that's our dog. Shoot.
Your dog's calling you?
Here, I'll call. Hold on, let me get the number.
Sorry, guys.
Oh,
One
no, you're fine.
second.
We can still hear you. You're just your video's dropping, so you're good.
Yeah.
I'll keep talking as they're calling. And then we'll log on. No, our dog ran away, which we're watching him, and we're like, I think he ran away. And this is the person calling us saying that they have our dog here.
Okay, I'm calling.
So sorry, Adam's not finishing the story because he's going to call them back because we're like, where'd our dog go? And he's a runner. So he's down the road somewhere and someone's calling. Oh, they're calling again.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Did you call this number?
Yep, I keep calling, but they're calling you, so they.
I'm going to hang up. Well, there we go. That's just keep calling them.
Okay.
It happens. No, so
Oh my
so
goodness.
you said or he said you want Adam to go ahead and tell this, or you want to?
Calling my wife's phone.
Oh, he got a hold of them.
Okay.
I don't even know. Now I'm distracted. What did he start with?
Oh,
And I
so
can
he was
finish.
you,
Sorry.
you saw the guy with the backpack, and then you felt
Oh,
led to
yeah.
pull over.
Okay, so yeah, we were led to pull over, and we pulled over, and this guy was hiking on foot from California to Oregon, actually to a feast. And we started talking with him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm hiking to this feast." I mean, that is a long way. The guy was just sweaty, and his face was red, and he wasn't doing so good. So I ran back in the bus, and I grabbed like some power bars and filled up his water, whatever else we could give him. And he just was super grateful, and we're like, "Can we pray for you?" I think his name was Israel, actually. I'll have to ask Adam on that because he was actually out there. Because at first, like, I didn't want to go out there because I knew we needed to pull over. I'm like, "But you better go talk to him." Yeah.
God's telling me to pull over, and you got to go talk to him.
I know. I was like a guy, and you're pulling over, and the kids are, I mean, we haven't been in unsafe situations, but you just be cautious, basically.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, we just were able to like pour into him and pray for him. And just, again, it's divine appointments like that guy was super grateful. He had been, I don't know how many days he had been walking without food, and, you could tell. And so he just felt called to walk, I guess, to this feast that he was going to. But I'm not sure what Adam was going to say about it, but I guess I'll just finish off with when you're not distracted and you're not in a hurry and you're just driving your bus and you don't have anything else to do, you can stop on the side of the road when the Holy Spirit prompts you to help someone. You can, you're just in totally different situations, and I got to go to work, and people are beeping the horn and they're angry.
We're so busy we can't do kingdom work.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually been praying for the last. I was inspired by our friend Joel that we do ministry with, but he prayed something once when we were all together in a group, and he said, "Lord, don't let there be anything in my life that would hinder So when we're engaging with people on the streets or whatever, they often need a miracle, right? And he was saying, don't let anything in my life be what permit or prevents them from getting their miracle today.
Wow.
Right. And like when you think about that perspective, that you're the vessel that God's using to do the miracle that they've been praying for.
Wow.
So it's like, it's not always about you and like, God, what am I going to get out of this situation? Maybe you stopping and being able to listen and hear that there was an interception and you were part of it for that guy. I don't know. But I think like, so often we always look selfishly at all the things that happen to us, you know, it's just a normal thing. But I love, like when you kept saying, get a different perspective, it changed your perspective, dude. I'm in the same boat with you. I literally, there's a lot of things that I can't describe now. And I just say perspective all the time. And it's, you know, I mean, you don't know until you know, right? Like the perspective that you get from, you're like, wow, I did not see that coming. I have a new perspective. I mean, you know, people can do what they want with that, but I get it, dude.
I think that's part of God breaking down our heart of stone, honestly, is that changes our perspective. It's not a selfish perspective. It's trying to see not only our own life, but the lives of other people around us and the people we don't know who God wants to bring in our life. It's seeing them through God's eyes instead of our own. You know, I think that's where he's trying. That's our perspective shift. But hey, we're coming up at the top of the hour here, real quick, guys. We got to drop into a commercial break. Can you hang out with us for a few more minutes to talk about what you guys are doing now and what God's calling you guys to go forward in?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Give us just a few minutes, guys. We're going to go to break, and we'll come back with Joni and Adam Wegman, and we'll continue this conversation.
Being born into a Illuminati bloodline or being born into a family that has been involved in generational, multi-generational, ongoing depravity and wickedness is nothing like what people think about when they hear the phrase pop culturally an Illuminati person. Just being born into the Reynolds bloodline. The Reynolds were not necessarily the preeminent purebloods. However, other individuals of my lineage carry darker seeds in their blood, if you will. They genuinely believe that they are carriers of the seed of the serpent. These people are builders of worlds, as they believe it. And the worlds they build are absolutely set in the cornerstones of darkness. And the reality is it's a far more sophisticated system that has been architected and built into the fabric of our society. If you show certain aptitudes at early ages, they will darken you through traumatic systemic abuse. The chosen ones would be the child that's been selected as having the best predisposition to being able to endure intense amounts of trauma, fracture their mind through what's called dissociation. This is later on what can develop into dissociative identity disorder, what used to be called multiple personality disorder. And that really is the black heart of this kingdom. And that's the big secret. They're always telling people to hush, hush. And the reality is they're hiding this big bad boogeyman, which is split personality, mind control, and handlers and individuals that use people like cattle. I had a higher level of intelligence. And so when they split me, I had the ability to maintain aspects of my core at a high level and still have one personality that could function for the cult and be cult loyal, my Nightwalker side. And then I had another front side that was a Christian moral side that was a Daywalker. So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, is what this is all about, divide and conquer tactics. And they base these things off the principles of the Word of God, which says a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's exactly what they do, is they split someone so they can never stand against the enemy ever again. And the goal is always to shatter the mind so you can control that individual. And my grandfather and other members of his brotherhood were Jesuits. There's no way around it. And the Jesuits make some of the best mind control splitters in the world, including and up to assassins, which is what I ended up showing an aptitude for. By appearing to be a good Christian and knowing the language and being in the private Christian schools and being around and saturating yourself in a Christian environment all the time, it gives you the ability to blend into that environment at will. you can become that. And that's what my aptitudes were, is that I became this chameleon. Wherever environment was, I took on the emotional form of whatever my targets or people around me needed me to be, so that I could fulfill my purpose there, whether I was being sent in to infiltrate a group or whether I was just being sent in to plant cameras so that we could capture blackmail evidence of sexual abuse and incest or pedophilia, which was my most common trait when I was younger, when I was working with a lot of the individuals out of the Knights of Columbus and the Jesuits. They really like to control people through setting them up with compromising videos. Compromise is their kingdom. And so they're very, very good at making sure to find ways to have a little black book on you and your dirty deeds. And my family got very wealthy by selling secrets, by selling these little black books of individuals who later may have become prominent or may not. And either way, they compromise them young, they compromise them early. They find people that have certain aptitudes towards, say, diplomacy. When you realize that everybody at certain areas of our political system, military industrial complex, operates under these confines and constraints, you'll understand why there's not real change. There's no real impactful difference done if you work in their system. And that's why it is so critical for people to learn that God had dictated a different system that he outlined in his word for how we're supposed to walk out of Babylon and into peace and into deliverance and into hope and joy and rest. And my book and this story is not something that was watched and experienced. This was something my wife and my daughter and I have lived and breathed and fought for tooth and nail to survive, because coming out of this will cost you everything. And I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat over that. If you are in this, if you are someone who has been involved in this, if this has touched your life, you need to understand that there is deliverance available to you no matter how dark it's been. And my darkness is darker than the abyss. I have tasted the black waters of the tombs of death. And those who are in there know exactly of what I speak. And when you've drunk of the serpent seed, you know that you are defiled on a scale that most people don't know is real. But I know this, that there is nothing the enemy has done to me that the Lord Jesus Christ has not undone and set me free from, and given me a new purpose and a new calling, so that I can turn around and take those same gifts and talents and mindsets and abilities and wash them into a new mind and be transformed. This book, what it is a very real, awesome look into what it's like for someone like my wife, who may not have been born into this or known what it was she was getting into when she met me, but she stayed with me through this. And this book is so much really our love story and what a real marriage looks like. It's not pretty, but it's powerful. And that's what I want to make sure people know, that it's better to have a purposeful life than it is to have an empty one.
All right, guys, and we are back for our second hour. Thanks for everybody sticking around. We're here with Adam and is it Joni? Or Joni? Joni, okay. Just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Joni Wegmans. And we want to kind of, because everybody's been kind of hearing about what you guys were doing. We want to really bring you guys into what you guys are doing now. I know that you guys had some books that you guys were putting out, and you've got a website and stuff. So for everybody that's listening and, hanging off of how they can follow you guys, go ahead and start off with giving them the information where they can find you on YouTube, your social medias, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So our YouTube, we haven't put a lot on there, but it's mostly of our travels, and it's Adam Joni Adventures is our YouTube. We do have a marriage testimony video on there that's really powerful that I think would help a lot of people. If you're not into the traveling thing, that would be something to watch. Otherwise, on Facebook, Adam Wegman, Joni Wegman. What are our other ones?
Well, Instagram's Adam Joni Adventures, but for our ministry, it's Haven House 721. So they can go over to that website. We're in the middle of really building it, and so not everything is finished on it, but there's enough information on there to get a feel of what we're doing, which we can go into. But Haven House 721.
Yeah, and I did take that the 20-minute or 30-minute video that you guys had that was on your site that kind of was giving your guys' background in your marriage, you know, and everything that was happening with that. And I posted that for those that are a part of the SITREP Resistance Facebook group. It's on there. I had it pinned up at the top. So if you guys want to check out and see everything that they're talking about with their relationship and stuff, it's about a 30-minute video. So when you guys get done with this, go over and watch that if you guys are on our Facebook page, and go check that out because it's really cool.
Hey, before we get into this again, okay, so I don't remember. I watched it, but I don't remember how to find it or who did it. You guys were interviewed by like a tiny homes thing or like a off-grid thing, and that was a pretty cool little video interview. Where can people find that? Because they can actually get a look at your bus and hear the story about it and all that. Do you know?
Well, we were interviewed, or we did a couple channels, a couple tours with different channels. One is Tiny Home Tours. That one was in 2019, I think they filmed that one.
It looks a little better now.
It does.
What
was the other one?
Giant Journey, or
Tiny Home Giant Journey.
Tiny Home Giant Journey.
Wow, we're
Tiny
terrible.
Houses
We don't even know.
Journey?
Seriously. You know what?
I don't know.
Go on to our YouTube channel,
We
and
got a little mini tour.
we
on
have
there.
a mini tour of it, which I think is honestly it's more our style because we're just it's a little less.
We need to do another one. It's so much work. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, it's out there if you want to find it.
It's so much work to film your bus when you're living in it, like trying to do life. But yeah, we should do another one soon because we've done a lot of updates.
You guys sell yourself short. I think it's amazing that you managed to cram what you've crammed in there, to be honest with you. Okay, I have one question that we never touched on. How come your children aren't psychopaths? Because, like, if I put my kids in the room together and, you know, I don't know. That's the answer. I got some coloring books out or whatever. Things would go very south real quick. So I don't know how you do it.
I would answer that by saying, with all of the marital stuff that we've been through and all the other trials that we've endured, when we got pregnant with our daughter, which is on our testimony video, that was really God's promise that he had started the redemption process in our marriage. And so we have two more, so Lincoln and Solomon. And I really believe that he truly, everyone who meets them too, he truly gave us incredible children. They just are. I think it's part of our redemption process and part of just his amazing gift to us.
And they're really best friends because even when we were home before we left on the bus, we homeschooled and we did everything together. And then getting on the bus, of course, we're in tight quarters, and we had to do everything together. We didn't have anyone else, we didn't have friends to go to their homes or whatever. And so we just learned to grow as a family that way. And actually they saw us go through all the trials too, which, some parents maybe would try and buffer their children from that and maybe protect them from seeing all the hardships and trials. But ours, we couldn't hide. That's the one thing about living in a tiny space. There was nowhere to go. Like I couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't like leave and go to a different room or go in the backyard or go anywhere. It's like you have to face all the issues. They're in your face constantly. So you either deal with them or it's going to get worse. So that's what we ended up doing, is just dealing with a lot of things in life. And adversity produced just well-rounded children, I guess.
I do have one thing I wanted to say about that, though, that just for a little like parenting tidbit, we work really hard to teach our children to treat one another respectfully. And so that means like they don't even try to initiate causing issues with one another, or like, so in certain families, parents might side with one child or the other child, or they don't spend a lot of time teaching the actual children how they're treating one another. Like we are really consistent with that they are not allowed to treat one another that way. Like we pour a lot into their treatment of each other. And so because of that, it's cultivated that they know like they're not going to get away with that. And so it's cultivated that they treat one another respectfully. I mean, they're still children and there's still conflict, but it's really pretty minimal with one another. I mean, it just doesn't happen that often. And I think that's just a consistent thing that we've tried to pour into them.
So do you feel like having less stuff has made it easier for like conflict resolution and just like actually the relationship part of the kids?
Yeah, like right now there's a wood pile over there and they created a swing out of just a single rope that they literally get on and swing back and forth and think it's the best thing ever. But that's an example of their day-to-day. They're with each other trying to figure out how to create things, how to do things together. My daughter just came today and made this whole booklet of, she'll tell stories to her two brothers, and they all these little people or whatever that she tells them stories about have names. So today she drew them all out. Like one looks like a candy cane, one looks like a lemon drop, and she named them all. So now when she tells the boys stories, they know what each of these little like cartoon people look like.
Yeah, her characters.
And so that's just how they are with one another. She treats them well, they treat her well, and I don't know, it's just, they're just a gift. They're all three a gift to us. Really.
What are you drinking, Ian? Is that one of your sponsors?
Yeah, it's Mountain Dew. I'm actually I work for Coca-Cola and I drink Mountain Dew.
Oh, that's funny.
Alrighty then.
So,
well, yeah, because Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew doesn't tell you to be less white. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I did have to say something about the children aspect of it. I mean, if you look at, I mean, I know this is kind of cliche, but look at a Little House on the Prairie and the way the kids behaved then, and then look at modern society children, right?
Yeah.
When they don't have as much stuff, when they have to be creative and they have to use their imagination and they have to, there's something to be said about that. When you look at Hollywood stars today and they're having children, when they've got millions of dollars, and these children are growing up in an environment where everything is handed to them on a silver spoon. There's no strife, there's no conflict, and they become like just off the wall, drug addicted brats. You know what I mean? And I think there's something about that minimalistic lifestyle that's how it's supposed to be for us, for raising our children properly. And yeah, I mean, you guys are, your children are an example of that. And I think that's the way I think we should be moving into. We give them everything. It's like my daughter's got a ton of toys, but if you bring another kid over here, whatever toy that kid's playing with, she has to play with it too. It's like, but I've been really feeling like I could be a minimalist, which is crazy because I was not that 10 years ago. I liked a lot of stuff, and then God made me poor. And then, and then he started teaching me the 1159 principle. And so like, I mean, I don't think you can ever get comfortable waiting till the last minute for everything. We said before, like God doesn't want you to be comfortable, but I don't think you can get comfortable waiting. Like, even though he's going to come through, it sucks waiting to the last minute. You're like, can you please just do it early today? But he never does. But so I guess patience is a virtue because it's like super hard to have it. But yeah, I really feel like now, like, I mean, how when you're a kid and you become a Christian or you go to church and you like start to pray those prayers like, God, I want to do what you want me to do. I'll go where you want me to go. Just don't send me to the mission field or what. You always have that, but don't do this, God, please. Right. And then he ends up starting to do that. And you're like, oh crap. Like I should have reverse psychology him, or whatever. But I really feel like there's been a lot of that in my life, and it's like I can look back now, and it seems crazy to say that you look back 10 years. And I mean, but I look back 10 years, and I'm just like, man, I understand like a lot of things happened to me in the last 10 years that now I can see why. But at the time, I had no idea. I just hated it,
And
Yeah.
so I'm sure that in the next couple of years, you guys are going to start seeing a lot more cool stuff popping out of, what God has made inside you and through you. And I think that's super cool and inspirational when you guys get to share your story. Even though the parts that you don't think are cool, like you're like, I know I'm telling a lot of stories, but guys, your stories are cool to us. We live in Ohio.
And
The reason we're the same state pretty much. I mean, for
we're
lameness,
flyover country.
For lameness.
for lameness and chemtrails, gray skies. You have gray water, we have gray skies. So,
Yeah. Real gray.
so if you want to come here, this is like a mission field. People here are very depressed because I've heard that Oregon, when I was a kid, they used to say Portland rains every day and that they got the highest suicide rate. I can guarantee you Ohio probably has a bigger suicide rate than Portland, Oregon. I bet you it only rains a little bit there, right?
Well, we're in the desert, so we're in high desert in central Oregon, so we are like 3 hours from Portland.
I didn't even know there was a high desert in Oregon.
Portland
There
sounds
is.
like it has all kinds of stuff.
These words mean nothing to me. I don't. High desert.
How about
What?
sagebrush and tumbleweed?
Is that for real in Oregon?
No, yeah.
No, there's every terrain you can imagine. Here.
Oregon is a very well-rounded person.
Yes. No,
we
we're
have
literally- well,
hills and rivers. That's what we have here. Corn.
Yeah, we have hills.
yeah.
We're from Minnesota. We understand.
So behind us is 10,000-foot mountains, and on the other way is sagebrush for like 80 miles.
And then Portland turns into rainy and lush and green.
Yeah, everyone thinks.
I can't even comprehend that there's mountains and then a desert and then there's Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Portland's an oasis because all those weirdos are doing rain dances and stuff and turning the climate into like a tropical zone over there.
Well, actually, it's funny because we got off the road in October after being full-time and we didn't have anywhere to live. We drove into this little parking spot on land of the fellowship leader of this small church here, and we didn't know anyone, and Adam just like looked up a Torah fellowship finder or on a Facebook post to see if there was anyone in the Bend area, because through a series of different things we just really felt the Holy Spirit prompting us to come here. And we had traveled all 19 states west of the Mississippi and felt like we were just going to go back to Minnesota because this is just exhausting after a while. And putting aside all the good things we just talked about, road life it gets weary, or you get weary on the road. And anyway, so yeah, we parked here in July and we just started to weep. We went to the first service. They were sitting out on the lawn because of COVID stuff, and they're just picking a guitar. The wind's blowing, the sun is shining, and they're singing. They just are really talented, and they're singing some Hebrew songs, which I had never heard sung before in that way. And Adam and I just had tears streaming down our face. We just were overwhelmed. And so within a week after traveling 2 years on the road, we decided that we were going to move to Bend. And so we went all the way back to Minnesota. We still had one storage unit with just keepsakes and, the stuff that you have to keep. And so we were selling the rest of the stuff out of the storage unit to fit everything in a 7x16 foot trailer that we were going to tow behind the bus 1,800 miles from Minnesota to Oregon. And yeah, that was a whole nother story. We got to South Dakota and Adam was literally yelling.
Do you guys remember Chad Schaefer's speech at Take on the World?
Yes,
Where
I
he
do.
Yelled, Yeshua,
Yes.
Yeah,
that was me, but add more drama.
He's like, we're not going there. We can't make it. We had like 40-mile-an-hour headwinds. This trailer is full of stuff. We're trying to tow it behind the bus, and the bus was not liking it. And our exhaust was pushing off the trailer back into the bus. Our noses were black. Our hair was literally gray, not with sewer water, but gray again. Her hair was gray. There was so much soot that I ended up getting like carbon monoxide poisoning.
The transmission was leaking. The bus was overheating. It was just
like,
a terrible.
Father, what are we doing? He's like, we're trying to move after being on the road. And so anyway, this gal from this new church here that we didn't even know, she just called and she's like, what do you guys need? Do you guys need anything? And we're like, we're ready to turn back around. Adam's like, I can't drive this bus. I can't do it. And she's like, okay, I'm going to drive my SUV out there. I'll come get your trailer. We're like, we're in South Dakota. Like, you're not driving from Oregon to South Dakota to tow our trailer. She's like, yeah, I can be there in a couple days. Like, whatever. And she's like in her late 50s, 60s, I think. And we're like, we're just going to try and make it another day. So we made it to Idaho, and she literally met us and towed our trailer. And what she said on the phone was, your family, let's get you home. And then we're just like, whoa!
Oh, that's so awesome.
And so anyway, what I was going to say about that is we parked here in October and we ended up living in the bus till December. It was freezing. The floor was like an ice rink. It was pretty awful because we couldn't find a place to live. And then we ended up renovating this tiny 1-bedroom on this property that we're on right now. But I just wanted to say something that in life, sometimes you say yes to things. And I think that is really important, especially what is going on right now, to remember that there are seasons in life. And sometimes those seasons might only be like a 6-month chunk, or maybe they're 10 years. But when we moved here, we figured like, this is where we're going to start our retreat place for couples. That's our big vision. This is where we're going to stay. This is beautiful. It's lovely. It's just so many things we've been looking for. But we just drove to Idaho last week to check it out because the political climate of Oregon is awful. It's awful. They passed some things that other states haven't even passed. And to live here and raise children here. But we realized that we were just empty vessels when we drove up on this property. And this church that is just such a great, healthy Hebrew roots church that combines spirit and truth has just filled us. We have been so filled over and over again, week after week, that we just believe, I mean, we don't know the whole future, but we're not going to stay long term here. But we just believe that he brought us here for healing and filling. And so I think that's just encouraging to people, because when you say yes to things, sometimes you doubt what you said yes to because it's not as long term as you think it should be. But we've just embraced everything's a season right now kind of living.
Yeah. And one thing Joni keeps telling me, because driving that bus gets weary. I don't mind it now, but when we were doing it all the time, I'm like, come on, because it didn't. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on with it, but Joni goes, Adam, you just got to remember all of this is temporary. And that really gave me a lot of peace. I'm like, oh yeah, it sure is. It's all temporary. And this isn't even our home. And if I don't know, how many people are watching or whatever, but I just want to get this out there, because a lot of us see the world and we think there's this perfect place that you can go to where you can get away from all the icky stuff, and you can grow your own food, and you can do all the things, and you can have the right people around you, and you can have your mountain escape, and you can have your water and all this stuff. And I thought that when we left on the road, I'm like, we're going to find that place. It's the last thing I do. Well, 19 states later, we prayed through every place, went to some of the most epic, beautiful, pristine places that you would just love to take a picture for a postcard, but there was no community there. We go somewhere that had amazing growing season and wonderful soil, but it didn't have one of the other elements that you needed. And every place had stuff that was great, but it was missing one or the other. And I came to realize that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist on this side of eternity, that special place that I'm looking for. It's all in my heart, and only he can fill me with what that is, no matter where it is. If you're in Ohio or Indiana or wherever it is, and for us, we're in Oregon right now, but it just doesn't exist. You can't outrun things. You can't. I definitely am not saying don't ever move, because we've definitely done our fair share of that. But we need to be content and understand that, okay, maybe there's a place where it's better, where the Lord's leading me, then do that. But also just take it from a guy who's driven a lot. I haven't found that perfect place. I don't think it exists. Either it's too cold of winters, too hot of summers, too this, too that. And that was a big eye opener for me, because for so long I researched every little microclimate of this state and that state and prices and all the things. And in the end, it was like, Lord, do you want us here or not?
Yeah.
And if we didn't have peace, we kept driving.
Yep.
And if he gave us peace, we'd stay a while and see if the peace lifted. And if the peace lifted, then we go again. And so it was, we prayed the prayer, like the Hebrews leaving Egypt, the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. We literally were praying that he would lead us that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. In our live chat, Karen C, she's in Idaho, but she says Oregon has everything: beach, mountains, desert. We are in the high desert here too in Idaho. She said the Bend is beautiful. So
yeah.
I wonder if she's where we just were. We just went to like Eagle Meridian area, and that sounds pretty similar to what she might be.
Quite possibly.
Where she might be.
You got some of our listeners out your way.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about a little bit about the books, what God's had you guys do towards the books, and then what you guys are moving towards with the website, and how you guys are trying to push your ministry is going, which direction your ministry is going now.
Yeah. So Ian, we were talking earlier about, I don't know if we were on air or not, but I think we were, about addiction and different pathways in your brains and all those things.
Yeah.
And that was my story. Not an opiate addiction or anything like that, but a lust addiction and pornography.
Help me
Sorry,
unhook the dog.
our dog's getting a little feisty here.
Then he won't distract Adam. Okay.
And so that, I was exposed to it at a young age, and that was the sin for me. I believe everyone's kind of has a tendency to lean towards one sinful act or another. And for me, that's what it was. And for a lot of guys. And so I won't go through my whole background. If anyone wants to see it, they can watch that YouTube video you guys posted. But through all that, my heart was hardened and seared. We were separated 3 times in our marriage before having children. This guy took me under his wing, and actually Joni begged him for me to come to his house for a week so I could be free. And I was so hard-hearted. I'm like, nah, I'm good. This is just part of my life I got to deal with. I'm not going.
Because he had already, with this guy, he had already gone through, which is on our testimony, but he had already gone through 2 different purity studies, and it would always come back to where I would have a dream and the Lord would reveal to me like he's back in pornography. And so I'd ask him, and it was just this whole cycle. And so I called up that guy. I just was desperate. I'm like, can Adam come stay with you? Can he come? He's like, no, like, I'm not going to hunt this guy down. Like, he's got to come and contact me. I'm like, I'm desperate. He is not going to contact you. He is not in a frame of mind that he even believes this is the severity of what is going on. You are our last hope. Will you just, I don't know how many times I called him. I just wore on him. He finally was like, okay, if you can get him here, he can come.
Yeah. And I guess I will backtrack a little bit. We had been to counseling with different pastors and stuff like that. And we actually had some of them tell us we need to get divorced right there in their office because we weren't getting along. And I had pastors justifying me because it's a guy thing and all guys struggle with that, is what they would say.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's where my heart was like, oh, I got to pass on this, because all guys struggle with it or whatever. Anyway, I ended up going to this guy's place. I said I would be there at like 3:30 and I show up at 5:30. And he opens the door and he goes, Adam, I'm glad you made it. You said you're going to be here at 3:30 and it's 5:30. A man of God and a man of his word will show up on time. That was the first thing he said to me. Wow. And I'm like, oh, crap. That's for real,
Worst vacation ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like February in Minnesota, no vacation at all. So, well, so he worked during the day doing his own business, and he had this huge house, and his family was in a different home they owned in a different location. And so literally I was left in his house by myself, and the only thing I had to do, the only thing I had access to were a Bible and a bunch of Christian books on his bookshelf. And so I just devoured the Bible that week and everything I could find in his collection of books. And through that week, I started to understand what having like Yeshua as my true Lord over my life really looked like. And this guy also helped me. And he's like, you need to start questioning yourself. I'm wearing a backwards hat today. He's like, why are you wearing a backwards hat? I said, why do you have a beard? Why, at the time I had earrings. He's like, why do you have earrings? And he's like, you need to know why you do these things. You need to understand yourself. You need to ask yourself the hard questions. Those don't seem like hard questions, but it's something we overlook and don't really think about. And so through that, Joni I had his landline. I don't know what year it was. We had cell phones too, but he had a landline, and I would call her to check in. And I think the first day I called her, did I leave a message or we just talked in person? And then I left a message at the end of the week, and she kept the recording of that. And she said, it sounds like two different people. That week really changed my perspective.
His actual voice.
My voice even changed. Yeah.
Was different.
And to back up a little bit more, when I say like pornography was the thing I struggled with, it wasn't even a thing of viewing it daily. Sometimes I wouldn't view it for a month. Sometimes it was every other week. It wasn't like addicted many times a day or even daily. But
that's where it's not that bad, I'm
Right.
not that bad came in
yes,
to play. But I was the person on the receiving end of seeing my bright-eyed husband's eyes fade. Someone then who doesn't want to go anywhere, is walking under this cloud of shame.
yeah,
Didn't know who he was anymore. And so it's like, it really wasn't even a slow fade. It was consistently, he was fading into, and then on top of that, because there's so much shame and so much guilt, then the overcompensation of, more forceful and more leave me alone. And so it escalated, even though his viewing or whatever wasn't that often. It's enough to harden your heart. It's enough to change who you are and what you're doing.
It was my escape and my alternate reality. So I didn't have to face things I was struggling with, or I didn't have to face issues we were dealing with, or whatever it was. That was the escape I chose instead of going to the one true escape. That's what I did. And it hardened my heart. It really hardened my heart. And so that's so coming out of that, I knew that God was asking me to help other people with it. And I didn't know what that looked like. That was 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think part of our bus journey was to discover this even further, because we had to face a lot of things on the road too. And he, I don't know, through the process, he revealed to me I'm supposed to write a study for men, or maybe you mentioned it. Maybe not. I don't remember anymore how that started exactly. But so you mentioned,
because you were struggling with some things in the bus, and he just downloaded into your mind who you are in him. And then he said to me,
that's right.
I realized why I continually went back to that, because any step process, any purity book, if I do not have my identity firmly rooted in the Father, then I'm going to turn to things to fill that. So that's how it happened.
I was always of the understanding that if I just stop the behavior, that should be good enough. I'm not actually sinning then if I stop the behavior. And Joni was always asking me, well, why? She would always ask me why. And I actually would get annoyed. I'm like, why does it matter why? I'm not doing it, And she's like, no, you need to know why. And I even had other men too say the same thing. And that's like, there's a lot of great books out there, but a lot of them are about do these steps, or bounce your eyes, or don't drive that way home from work, and it's all practical stuff, which is great, or throw away your computer, or don't have an iPhone, or whatever it is. Those are awesome ideas, but it doesn't get to the heart.
Yeah.
It doesn't get to the root issue. And if you don't get to the root issue, you have a very good likelihood of falling back into that sin and backsliding or staying there.
Yeah.
And so that's where I can picture it. I was in the bus, the steps of the bus. My 3 children are around me, and I was actually repenting to them for things I had done. And I was just weeping. And Joni was right there too. And this was in Arizona, in one of our times in the desert. Okay. So this is one of the purposes for us being there. Then suddenly the Holy Spirit, I felt come upon me, and I started saying things to my children that I needed to hear myself. And it was about who they are, not about what they did or are doing. And so I was telling them, like, do you understand the odds of you being here at this moment in history at this exact time? Like, those odds are crazy little, and how much God cares for you because he gave you the breath of life. And all these things just kept coming out of me, but it was for them, but I had to receive it, and I needed to hear it just as much as they did. And so that's what propelled me on the idea that there's other guys that must think the same way as me and not have a solid foundation in who they are. Because when you read scripture, it's like, I am his beloved, and he loves me enough to die on a cross, and all those things. And you hear them in church, but when I experienced that moment, it all became real for me. Like, in my heart and in my soul, I could feel every little bit of it. And so I wrote a 14-day men's study, and each day just goes through some practical things, some hard things, and then at the end of each day there's a mission for the guy to do. And one day is just like finding verses on a certain topic. One day is and different days are focused on different things, but the whole premise of the study is discovering your true identity. And without the true identity, you'll flounder in life. Your heart will harden, and you do things that you didn't think you were capable of doing in a negative way. But when you find your identity and you see yourself through the eyes of your creator, then everything changes, and you can live a fruitful and amazing life. And so I just wrote that for men to understand what it can be like to be free from sin, but also be free from the identity thing. Because in society today, we're dealing with all kinds of stuff. We're being shoved down our throat, that men are supposed to be a certain way and all this stuff. And if you look at scripture, it says something completely opposite. So, and there's a lot of other good books out there on the topic, but I approach it from a little different angle, just from my past and my history. And something that is kind of profound, but it's simple, is when we meet one another.
Oh, you gotta there you go.
Oops, we lost him.
No, we're there.
Oh, you guys
but
are still here.
Okay.
Wait.
There we are. Okay, sorry. Our alarms are going off on
Our kids' bedtime alarm is going off.
But when we meet one another, it's like, hey, I'm Adam. Hey, I'm Aaron. Okay, well, what do you do? That's typically what people ask next. Like,
right.
What do you do? What is your profession? Like, that defines who we are in this society, which is, if you look in scripture, there's some of that, tent makers and tanners and whatever else. But when we ask someone, we like shake your hand. Hey, I'm Adam. Hey, I'm Aaron. Who are you? If we just rephrase that and say, who are you? What are you about? What's your story?
Yeah.
It's a completely different conversation, and it won't fall flat. If two guys meet, one guy frames houses and a construction worker, and the other guy works in IT, a lot of times that whole conversation just flops right there, and they don't have anything else to talk about. But if it's who are you, it's a completely different conversation. And so that's just one aspect of kind of the mindset of the study, is asking different questions, and that each person is gifted with very specific and unique tasks that they're supposed to use to glorify God on this earth. And if you don't do it, somebody else will be tasked to do it for you. And so I think it's super important for us believers, like, to fully grasp what that is, to discover what it is, and to just go full force into those things.
It's called Armed and Dangerous. which is super cool because,
Yeah.
you know, for men too. And with that, just on the practical side, so he does the study and then it comes with, they can download coaching and accountability to get dropped in with other men to walk through that with them. Cause like what he experienced, it's just crucial.
I see we're lacking a lot of discipleship.
Absolutely.
For men to be godly men. It's like, who do you go and talk to find that? It's not there. At least in my life, it hasn't been, and except for that one guy I was talking about. And he held my feet to the fire the moment I opened the door. And I needed that. I truly needed that at that time. And there's not a lot of guys out there willing to do it. So I'm trying to make myself available. And part of my whole mission is to be that man for other guys. And no, my life's not perfect, you know, of course. And I've got stuff I'm always going to be working on. But in this area, I feel like he's given me some insight, the Lord has, and an ability to help some guys and encourage them.
No,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And you said you touched something that kind of really, I don't know, hit some things for me, because God was showing me some stuff about being able to abstain from stuff doesn't equal obedience, right? There are people who have the Pharisees and Sadducees followed the law, right? But their heart, God, he says that they honor me with their lips, their heart is far from me. When you look at the story, what God showed me was the story of the rich man. The rich man came up to him and says, I follow the commandments. And Jesus didn't chastise him and say, no, you don't. He agreed with him. He said, okay, you do. I can see your heart, right? Jesus saw the hearts of men. But then he says, now give up everything that you have and follow me. There was a heart issue that the guy could not get past. And that's when he turns to his disciples and says, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than, a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't, that guy was obedient to Torah. It was more than just obedience. There you have to understand why, and there's a lot more to that. Which we talk about the pornography struggle in Christianity a lot on this show, and it's something that has been an ongoing thing for not only myself but other people who've been on the show, and Ian. We've all talked about this, and that's one of those things. Like, just abstaining is not good enough, right? There's a reason why you do it. There's a root cause of why you search that out, and that's what really God wants to bubble that up to the surface for, is to deal with that. And I had to make that point because it really kind of clicked on my head that just abstaining is not enough. There's something else that you have to deal with. So
and it just reminded me of David slaying Goliath. He goes down and he's dead and he cuts his head off. Well, why did he do that? Well, if we're into the Nephilim stuff, we can speculate, also, but it's a finality. It's like, there's no going back. It's like Elisha sacrificing his oxen and burning his plows. I'm going to follow Elijah. That's my life. Burn the ships, that whole thing. Like, you have to be all in.
Yeah. Did you know what's cool is, since you brought up David, David went into that fight with Goliath with no armor, no weapons, really, besides a stone, right?
5 stones. He thought he was
5
stones.
stones.
His brothers too.
Well, listen, because after he walked away with Goliath's sword, so the giant that was trying to kill him, David walked away with his sword. Right, he killed him with his own thing. But then also, when David was anointed king, the sword that he had was Goliath's sword. He had that sword that became his weapon. Like, it sounds very strange, but like, what you just said about these giants that you're facing, and this testimony that you're walking out, and now you feel like God has called you to speak to this specific issue in other men.
Take the sword, the weapon.
You're taking the sword of the giant that you just slayed, and that's become your weapon. And I think that's awesome. And I have this, I found this thing that I want to read. It says, your calling is going to crush you. It says, if you're called to mend the brokenhearted, then you're going to wrestle with brokenheartedness. If you're called to prophesy, you're going to struggle to control your mouth. If you're called to lay hands, you're going to struggle with spiritual viruses. If you're called to preach and teach the gospel, you'll be sifted for the wisdom that anoints your message. If you are called to empower, your self-esteem will be attacked. Your success will be a hard fight. Your calling will come with cups, thorns, sifting, and all things necessary for the mantle to be authentic, humble, and powerful. Your crushing won't be easy, but your assignment is not easy. Your oil is not cheap. I think that is like a super cool thing. And I think we mentioned this a couple weeks ago on the show too, is like two things. When we always look at our children and the things that we see in our kids that bug us is always the things that is the reflection of ourselves in them. And I think God does that on purpose because, you know, he makes them cute. For one, he makes your kids cute so you don't kill them. But you have to have so much patience and you know, and just looking at your kid and you're like, why are you not getting? Every time I have to tell my son over and over again to not do the same thing, I immediately get convicted about stuff in my own life. And I'm like, oh man, like being a good, see, we always say being a good Christian or whatever, but like you said before, knowing why you do things, because there's people out there that follow the law, that, you know, do what they're supposed to do. They do good things. They're a good person. They do all that stuff. But like when you're in a relationship with someone like my wife, I can read all the books in the world about how to love your wife and, you know, try to do that the best I can. But like, if I don't get to know my own wife and what she likes, it doesn't make a difference. She may hate all that stuff, you know, how I'm supposed to do things that she likes. Yeah. How do I please her? Right. Mm-hmm. And so like, we're in a relationship with God and we want to just make everything so simple. Like, oh, well, I won't be bad. And he'll be proud of me. And it's like, man, you know, as a father, we know that's not true with your kids. Like, you have expectations, like you know what they're capable of. And when you see them not doing that, it's not like you're mad at them, but you're kind of like, what's the deal? You know, like, come on, how can I help you see what I see, you know? And I feel like, just this deepening, this path that we're all on, that God takes us down this journey of trust and relationship. And we're like, you know, none of us know exactly what our calling is, but like we said before, the seasons, and I always think about myself personally. I think the enemy always tries to attack me in the places that he always tries to flip it. So like, my strengths in the kingdom are my weaknesses in the flesh, right? So like, for example, when I was younger, I would get in trouble all the time because I wouldn't think of the consequences for things. Or if I did, I would just be like, whatever, it probably won't happen, right? I had a lot of hope. So I would be like, I know every single person I've ever met has been busted doing this, but I won't be, right? And that's like the stupidest thing ever, when you're stupid and an idiot when you're a kid, right? But like, when you're following God, that becomes the best thing ever, right? Because I trust that I'm like the guy with all the hope that's like, man, there's a 1% chance I'm going to be the one that gets this, right? And I'm going to go for it. And especially when it's in the right context, you know, and you're like, okay, you don't have any long-term vision. You should think about college. You should think about all this stuff. And I'm like, no way, you know? And now I'm like, when you're being in a place where you're being led by the Spirit daily, you're not in charge of your plans, right? Your plans don't mean anything, you know? So it's like, I have a gift to be able to trust God in the moment because I don't think big, right? And he gave us a light to our path, right? A lamp unto our feet and a light to our path. So that means you can only see like one step ahead. You're not supposed to look down. He didn't give anybody a floodlight that I'm aware of. So it's like, I feel like my weaknesses in the flesh, if I give them to the Lord, they become these strengths, you know, because they're made perfect in you know, when I give them over to him. And I feel like, man, I think it's so cool to hear other people's stories. I love this episode, guys. I really do.
I do too.
I'm really encouraged by you guys.
Yeah. No, and yeah, if because we're getting up to the top of the hour, and we don't want to keep you guys any longer than you have to. I know you guys got to get your kids to bed and all that, but give out some more resources. How can people reach out to you guys if they're struggling?
I will finish this off because we do have to give our kids to bed. But what I will say is that because I wrote a study just about 3 months ago as well that goes along with or after. So we really do want the men, every single man should do this study, I believe. Like, it is that incredible, that powerful. It's not just about pornography, it's about your identity. And we think that the men, when they finish the study, that is a good time to do the couples study that I wrote, because their hearts are prepared for what my study is about. Now, couples can do it without the men doing his study, but I just think they will be in a much better place if they do that. And here's why. So Adam was just kind of talking to me about maybe writing a women's study or something that could be coupled with his. And I like to write, but I was just completely uninspired to write anything. And so I woke up at 5 a.m. like 3 months ago, and I just started to write. And I told him, like, I'm going to write my study. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yep, I'm going to write it on intimacy. And he's like, okay. I'm like, that's what the Father put on my heart. And so it's just really incredible, because when you are in a relationship where a man has given his heart over to pornography, there are some, and I'm speaking to the wives out there or the women out there who have been touched by this, there are some deep, deep wounds, that there are places that you hide things in your heart that you feel as though you will never share with your husband again. It's something about pornography is just such a deep level of betrayal. And the problem is that for the men, for Adam, he had no idea the effects it would have on me. It wasn't an intentional thing he was doing. So I want women to be clear on that. They're not intentionally seeking to hurt you, but in the midst of it, you are deeply wounded. And so the last thing that I wanted to do, and the way that I describe it to women who have been through this, is that, and everyone goes through it differently, but for me, the way that I felt when we were at the beginning of this, like 12 years ago, when he started to come out of this, is like his touch felt like burning fire. Like I felt like he was lighting my body on fire, and not in a good way, like in a way of don't touch me. And so we really struggled through that piece of it. And we just decided we are going to walk through this. As painful as this is, we are going to walk through this, and we're going to get through this on the other side. And in doing that, I mean, there was many times I would just weep. I'm like, it's not you, it's me. I got to get through this. And the reason I'm sharing this is because my intimacy study, it goes from intimacy, really what the Father says that is, like the whole Bible is a love story. And then how that correlates to our marriages, and there is intimacy in all different levels, our hearts, our minds, our souls, connection in our marriage. So that's not all physical. And that piece of it, though, I'm going to speak to the physical, because my study is called Romance Rewritten. So it's a 16-day study for couples to go through. And it really, truly will change where your marriage is at in that area. But one of the big things that I think people will take out of it is, if they've been wounded in any area of their marriage, for women, the first thing that we do is pull away from physical intimacy. And so what I believe is that, number one, that is where the enemy is trying to take down marriages. He's trying to take them down on an intimate level, on this amazing gift that God has given us for our marriages. Like, he gave it to us. It's for our pleasure. It's for our good. And I even go into some of the scientific side of things in my study with hormones and what is released and just what it does. And again, all different levels of intimacy. But what I believe in the things that we have been through is the one thing that women pull away from is the place where all the healing begins. And so many women that I've talked to, the last thing they want to do is be physical and let their guard down when they've been wounded in that way. But I'm just here to say that this study, it's healing, but it's amazing and it's exciting and it's all those things you want in your marriage. But I want to touch on the side of things for the listeners that are on that is really healing. It is really healing for us to have that in our marriages. And so after the men finish his study, then they can go on to do the couples study, and that's called Romance Rewritten. And we do the same thing for couples if they want to do the coaching with it, because we realize that even though this is just really exciting because it's on romance and intimacy and all of that, there are going to be some areas that people need some work and want to work through it. So we do offer coaching with that study as well. And we do individual, but we mostly work with couples or individual men. So, or I don't, Adam does.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the other study that we wrote. You can find all of that on our Haven House 721 website. That's what we have going on right now, but you can pop on there and see our big vision. Our large vision is to not do this virtually and to create a hideaway, Haven House hideaway, where couples can actually come for a full weekend and people can sponsor couples to come. And they can find healing in person through food, through fellowship, through interactive outdoor ministry. And that whole vision is on our website too. So this whole traveling thing and everything that we went through is to find the land that the Father has set aside for us to do this retreat style ministry for couples. So we're still looking and we're still seeking, and we just believe we've been praying into this prayer for 10 years. That's a long time to pray the same prayer, that we believe that God has land set aside for us to do this, but we're going to keep praying and keep hoping and believing. So
yeah, well, I know that, God honors obedience. And you guys walking where you have, I mean, obviously the hand and the fingerprint of God has been in your walk and in your ministry. So he doesn't start something. Words don't come out of his mouth void, that don't return to him void. So, this ministry that you guys are, I foresee this being very beneficial for the community, because in a society where 70% of Christians struggle with pornography and their relationships, so the 50% of marriages are destroyed, it's either financially or because of adultery. I mean, these are major things that are affecting Christian communities and Torah communities. So we have to understand that people need this. And I think it's awesome, this journey that God has brought you guys through to get you to this point, because this is the hook that brings people in. And then you're like, hey, but yeah, here's what we're going to talk about, So it's awesome. I mean, it's a fantastic story, guys. I highly recommend everybody go check out your YouTube and get caught up with your social media and all that kind of stuff, so that they can be a part of this and support your ministry, and and seek you guys out if you need anything. So
thank you.
We love the Wegmans, guys. You guys are fantastic, and we appreciate all that you're doing and all that you've went through to get to this point. So
yeah.
Also, I want to encourage you guys too, because I believe that this year is the year of transition, and I believe that God is promoting people to another level, and I think you guys are almost there. Like, if you're not, I know you said you're probably not staying in Bend, unless a nuclear bomb goes off and kills all the politicians and stuff like that happens. It could happen, I guess, but probably not.
Hey, the way I look at it though is God, just like they pulled a truck out of a mine. God's in position. He's lining up the dominoes. So
well, actually, I have another thing too. I was thinking about this when you first told that story, but I forgot. So there was a study done on hope and despair with rats. Okay, we talked about this on our show a couple weeks ago, but I think it would be good for you guys to hear. And these scientists, they took some domestic rats and they put them in buckets of water. And the rats were by themselves in the water, and they just swam around. They couldn't get out, and they just died. Right? They gave up after 2 minutes. And then they took wild rats, did the same thing. Same, pretty much same result. They swam to the bottom. They tried to get out a little bit, and then they just gave up and drowned. So then they did an experiment where they took wild rats, they put them in this bucket of water. They're swimming all around, but right before they drowned, they pulled them out and they dried them off and they held them and they gave them some food and stuff like that. Then they put them back in the water, okay? And they swam for 48 hours without drowning. So the rescue sometimes, like you just said, you took a little pit stop in Bend and you met these people. Maybe this was God pulling you out and drying you off.
Yeah.
And he's going to put you back. Hopefully you're not going back for 48 hours is a long time compared to 2 minutes. Yeah, that's hopefully that part doesn't compute with you guys, but like the whole hope thing, right? Like, because hope deferred, and the enemy seeks the wearing down of the saints. And so when you described yourself as being worn down and just getting overwhelmed, and we all need that rescue, man. And so I think that you guys are doing awesome stuff. Be encouraged. Thank you for videoing and blogging, and I read your posts. I might not comment. I hate commenting on things, which is like the weirdest thing ever, because I get mad when people don't comment on my stuff. So I'm like, but I don't have time to comment on their stuff. But I just don't like texting. I just don't like doing stuff with, like, I don't know. I suck at that stuff. I'm more personable. I'd rather talk to you on the phone or in person, but I don't like follow up and all that junk with, I hate texting for sure. But
noted.
Yeah. Like, I don't mind if it's like logistics or whatever, like, hey, call me later or whatever. But it's like when people are saying like, why do you think that this is what it like, or can you explain to me this? And you're like, oh my Lord. Not Sam will always be like, would you answer this question for this person? I'm like, nope, because it's going to be so long and I am going to get mad and do something I don't want to do, but, she's just like, or she'll write something back and then say, Ian will explain it. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't want to talk to these people. Yeah. So I totally get it.
Oh man. Yeah. We want to, just shout out, guys, if anybody's going to be in the Dayton area at the end of July, the Go Therefore conference, tickets are up for sale and they're going to sell out. So there's a lot of really good speakers that are going to be there. So make sure you guys check that out. It's gothereforeconference.com. If you guys are going to be available for that. Take on the World is another one, which we're going to be there I will be for the most of the weekend. Ian will be there on and off throughout the weekend. But it's totwconference.com, and that's at the end of August. That'll be the 18th through the 22nd. So you guys make sure if you're going to get tickets for that. And that's just outside of Columbus, Ohio, correct, Ian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it's Marengo. Well, it's like a suburb of Columbus. So, that's the reason I'm not going for the whole time. I have to work, but I'll be stopping by like a couple times. I'll be there on Saturday evening and Sunday all day. But it's only about an hour from me. So
yeah, and we're supposed to be there.
And the Go Therefore conference is in Dayton again. Yeah. And there's something happening in Dayton, buddy. Ohio is going to be lit when all the crap goes down. I mean, we got some powerhouse stuff going on here. It's sweet. The weather sucks and the sky is gray, but the power is
all those,
the fire of God is here.
Portlanders away.
Yeah. You can't grow kale here, so they drive their bus right through. No offense.
Hey, bring some of that stuff out west.
There we go.
Some of those conferences.
You guys got enough. You got enough fires out there. You would think that one of them would be in a church, right? No,
I think so.
We're still waiting for our church to burn down in Minnesota since it won't sell.
Oh, you guys are renting it now, though, right?
Finally.
Yeah, it's rented.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you guys be bummed? Would you be super bummed if you went back and that's where Haven House was supposed to happen?
Yep.
Not gonna happen.
He said yep.
Won't be going back.
Oh, that's
no,
awesome.
We do go back. We'll be back there in August to visit friends and family, but we will not live there. No.
Well, again,
no, he drove us out of there. So
you guys ever make it back to the Midwest, make sure you guys stop by and see us. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank
Yeah,
you guys.
no, awesome,
Oh,
guys.
man.
We will keep back up with you guys and check in and have you guys come back on the show sometime and keep us updated. So,
Yeah.
We'd love that.
Thanks so much. Get some good sleep.
yeah. All right, guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in and being a part of the chat and everything. We love you guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and may Yah bless and keep you guys. And we will see you guys next week.
See ya.